That's a lot.
It is.
That's pretty good.
That's love to see it. We talk about the importance of track for these athletes. A lot of obviously there's some that do it as their main sport, but football, basketball players. Yeah, Tinbu Hollis played some football. I mean, it's it's great to see. And there's you look at Hensley from Citrus. I mean, this, as with any other sport, it can be a gateway to moving on to bigger and better things in college. So
congratulations to all those athletes.
Yeah, that's great to see. We talk about it. I mean, I don't care what sport it is, what time of year, what level it is. You get an opportunity to move on and participate in the state tournament and potentially win a state championship. That's something that will follow you around for a lifetime and something you can be proud of.
Yeah, speaking of winning state championships.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. The first ever team state championship in the history of Citrus High School belongs to Coach Chop Alexander and his weightlifting team. Carson Fluga wins an individual state championship, but I had a chance to talk with those young men. We'll have a story, a bigger story coming up in the next coming days. You can check it out on our YouTube channel that you're watching this, talking to some of those individuals. But congratulations to them winning the school's first ever state title. And here's just a little bit about what they had to say about the excitement of winning, not just for themselves, but for their school as well.
Will Remley, Dylan Frew, and Dakota West all talked about wanting to win states as freshmen, but a lot of people look down on us because we weren't as strong as we are now. But we made a statement almost our sophomore year when we brought 12 to state. I think we brought 12 to state last year when we had the first individual champion, Robert Yoakum, win in the 183 weight class. And then Baker County just swept us. But the next year, we made a statement to beat Baker County.
It was amazing. I mean, it really didn't sink in. But usually, when I got home, it really sunk in. So that was a pretty good feeling,
The first team at the school to do that. I mean, it's not just a state championship. It's the first one here. What does that add to it all, or is it still kind of the same thing?
Oh no, that adds to it. I mean, I'm glad that that we won the first state championship, and I'm glad that being a senior, I went out as a bang. So that's really awesome.
It makes you feel great, to win a state ring and then also to give the school a state championship. So it feels pretty good.
I kind of put it out there, I kind of planted that seed a long time ago that, we've never won a state championship before. You know what I'm saying? I just thought it'd be cool that, we achieved that team accolade. I say it's cool to have an individual accolade, but for us to all come together and win as a team, I think that, I think they were able to kind of see that big picture, and I think everybody bought into that, and then that's what, contributed to our success this season.
That's Chop Alexander, did a great job, and that guy is all Citrus all the time. He's obviously coaches all football.
The Alexanders are, by the way.
Yeah, that's a good guy, and good on those young men. They kind of talked about how they've been building towards this the last couple of years, and that's fantastic because, like we said, it just doesn't happen. You just don't show up and win a state title, and that's a big one because from now till forever, that first state championship banner for a team in school history belongs to those weightlifters.
When you walk back on your 10-year reunion, it's there. You talk about 10 years ago and back to that, it's right there. It'll go past, and you'll come back and say, "Wow, we did that."
Yeah, and you set the bar for those who come after you. I think it also, we've mentioned the weightlifting, the importance of it for getting ready for football. Not all those young men did weightlifting and play football, but a lot of them do, and we see that throughout the other county schools. That's a huge deal if you want to be successful on Friday nights in the fall. You got to put that effort in, but it's his own sport, obviously, and they've done a great job over there at Citrus. I mean, we've known about their weightlifting pro because they've been good in this area for a long time. They talked about the disappointment, and you'll hear it in the longer story that we do in the coming days. They lost to Baker County a couple of years ago, and really kind of opened their eyes. They went to the Sewanee meet before the state, and they won that, and then that was sort of like, okay,
hey, we can do this.
We're good if we do what we are supposed to do. So congratulations to them.
That's right. And also, you got another thing about the Citrus also. You got football. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we talked about what's going on. Right now, the spring sports are finishing, but it's also time for spring football.
That's right.
Coaches and teams are getting themselves ready in an important time of year for the football programs for different reasons. And we sort of talked about all the different schools. I mean, year number 2 for Monty Van at Seven Rivers, trying to build numbers and build that program. Cliff Lowry, year number 2 for him at Crystal River. Couldn't have been much better than what they accomplished first year. I know they would have liked a couple of state tournament wins, but a great regular season for them. But they've got a couple key holes to fill. I mean, when you're talking about DeAndre Parker and Jaden Williams, to name just a couple of guys. Miles Hampton moving on. Yeah, I mean, Sandex. Moving on. 3 of those at least are playing college ball. So holes to fill. But I think you can see that program is building, and now they've got to figure out how to reload. Coach Greg Harper and Lecanto, I think they're hoping that group that is junior heavy, which will be senior heavy come the fall, takes that big step forward. And I'm sure that's what he's looking at in the spring, as well as trying to develop some of the younger kids, some freshmen who are becoming sophomores. I know that they're happy with the way the middle school program has progressed into freshmen, so they need to see the fruits of that labor. And then we've talked about it too, the coaching change at Citrus High. Robert O'Brien comes in, ties to the area, grew up here, was gone out west for a long, long time out in Colorado, coached high school, a little bit of college background as well. And, an interesting time to come in, because that was last couple of years have been interesting for the Hurricane football program. Kind of surprised, I think, a little bit in 2017 with their run. Missed out on the playoffs. PowerPoint, we have to get into that, but missed out on that. Last year was just,
started out bad.
You lose a member of your team tragically, the weekend before the season starts, and hard to kind of get things going. They got it sort of going at the end of the year. Nate Varnador did a good job keeping that group together, and of course he moved on to a higher calling and opened up the opportunity for Coach O'Brien to come in. And here's what he had to say about taking over at Citrus, and a job that he's very excited about having.
It's a big change coming from Colorado. Colorado didn't have spring practice, so I haven't had spring practice since I was at Plant or when I was in college. So we had spring practice there, but it's a big change. The excitement level has been through the roof. I'm a very excitable person. Very, very intense, as all the kids will tell you. So we've gotten after it. There's been zero holdback. The kids have bought in. They've been excited to be out there. And the kids who want to be there are out there. We talk about building a culture here and having 2 feet in. You're not a 1 foot in, 1 foot out guy. When things get hard, you're going to stick it out. We're 2 feet in at all times. The kids are buying into that, and they're getting after it. So it's been exciting.
Obviously, a new coach, that always is a little bit of a change, but it seems like new philosophy, certainly some new systems. So a lot going on for these young men. Just talk about the challenge that you're putting in front of them, because that's a lot to digest.
Yes, sir. It's been difficult for them. It's been an acclimation process. The nice thing is having Coach Alexander here with the defense. He's been a stalwart for what we've tried to do for the last, some odd years here. He's done a phenomenal job of getting the defensive where it needs to be. Offensively, last year they had some good ideas. Some things happened and didn't really work out the way they wanted to do it. So really I'm trying to build off of the success that they had defensively last year and try to bring my own flair and my own excitement level into what we do. Offensively, we go fast. We play no huddle. We're running to the ball. We're sprinting to the ball as fast as humanly possible. We want to snap the ball quickly. We want to make it hard for defenses to change personnel groupings. We want to be able to run a lot of different formations with a few base number plays, but give it a lot of window dressing and do a lot of things very quickly. And the kids have jumped on board. I think the biggest fear when I came in January and said we're going no huddle, we're going fast, we're going off wristbands, they all thought, oh man, I'm going to have to be in the best shape of my life to do this. And they were right. And that's a good thing. We're out here to get after it, and we're going to do that every single day. It doesn't start in the fall. It starts now. It starts through the spring. It starts through the summer, getting in shape so that we can run that offense. We can do it very effectively.
And there you go. I mean, we talked about it before we even had the chance. I mean, because he mentioned it. It's going to be a change in offense.
Yeah.
It's going to be now. He also and there'll be a feature story on Coach O'Brien up on our YouTube channel in the coming days as well. I think a lot of times you hear fast, no huddle, and maybe sometimes you think they're going to throw the ball all over the yard. No, he mentioned he's familiar with the identity of Citrus High School, and that's the big guys up front. That's running the football. You still can go fast and run the football, and I think that's what he's going to try to do. You got to mix in a little bit of pass. Obviously he's got an experienced quarterback in Connor Bishop, who's been around for a couple of years. It'll be interesting to see how that offense takes shape, because this is for them a very important time, because you know how it is, Mike. You get ready for those first couple weeks of fall practice, and then it's game time. And when you're trying to install a new scheme, I think you can get away with it on defense and have it kind of grow as the season goes on a little bit. Offenses, offenses
are always behind the defense when you're instituting a new system or trying to change things up, and that's a big deal. And especially in this area, you don't see a lot of fast tempo like that. That's a West Coast offense that's coming in, that's just popping things out now. In high school,
I think Crystal River did that.
They did it to
at times last year, right? I mean, we saw them at times.
I don't know if he's going to do it all the time or he's going to be in certain situations, but I do like what he's saying is that we're going to put some window dressing on it, which I like that. You're going to mix it up a little bit, and I think it's going to be exciting kind of football.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting because you have to go fast. So the guys have to be in shape.
You have to know exactly what you're supposed to do every single play.
And when it's going right, it can be hugely effective.
When you put your defense on.
When it's not going right, you're talking about a lot of 3 and outs, and your defense. That's the one. If it's not working, you're going fast. You could also be putting your defense on the field fast. And remember, we're talking about. And I don't know specifically the numbers they have, but you're going to have a lot of kids going both ways. That's just the nature of football in this county playing where we are. So it's his style. It's what he wants to do, and he's going to see how it goes. And you're right. You're going to need some young men that can be some explosive playmakers, and your offensive line is going to have to be, as he said, their worst fear is true. Yes, you are going to be in the best shape of your life.
Yeah, and it's funny. I'm just kind of interested to see how he feels about us here Flatlanders versus the old Rocky Top guys out there, because we're a little bit we're not in the high elevations up here, but we can.
Yeah, I mean, one thing he did mention is there's no spring football in Colorado.
Exactly.
Man, because I know there's actually snow in Denver the other day. So he gets a little bit of time to install, and we'll see. He also mentioned Coach Alexander on the defensive side of the ball, that identity will stay virtually the same as it has, which is important. So you kind of keep that aspect of it, which I think helps. I mean, it's tough if you're going to be putting a new system on. I don't even think you can have any modicum of success if you're changing schemes and philosophies on both sides. But that is tough to do.
It's tough.
But to have a coaching staff that is familiar and going to run the same. I mean, so defense, you can sort of take your time, less practice time working on that stuff, because the offense is going to take some more practice time.
I agree.
And so, as I said, stay tuned to our YouTube channel. There'll be more on Coach O'Brien. We'll also, in the coming weeks, give you updates on the other schools as they start and finish up spring practice. And before you know it, we'll be talking about the fall. It won't be here before long.
Snap like that. Speaking of other schools, we have a announcement that came over today about the new conference that they're having here for Citrus and Hernando.
Yeah, we talked about it. I mean, I remember talking with Coach Allen. I mean, as soon as really, the football new districts came out, and then you knew there was going to be a change in basketball, and he talked about reviving the old Gulf Coast Conference. And
GCAC.
And now it's the Gulf Coast 8. I think is
Gulf Coast 8 Conference.
Gulf Coast 8. Coach Allen will be the president of that, and a wise choice. I think he's
Hall of Famer. What the heck? You need
Hall of Famer, but I mean, and he's not the only one of the ADs in the area, but he has always been a guy who. It's more about the greater good. I mean, even if something may benefit Lecanto, but it's not. But if it's, he would rather the other schools benefit, and it's maybe to the detriment of his school sometimes. But it's going to be great. It is the 3 County schools from Citrus, the 5 from Hernando, and they will have an all-conference team selection at the end. Individual sports will have a conference tournament at the end to win a conference. Yeah, to have that. The team sports will go on the regular season standing. So basically what you're talking about in football is not involved because they have their own district and you have to play that district schedule. The other sports we're mainly talking about: boys and girls basketball, boys and girls soccer, baseball, softball, and volleyball. Those are the main ones that come into play here. And what it does, and there's several reasons, but I think the biggest reason is scheduling.
Yes.
Now that you've changed how the district is run in boys and girls basketball, so all those sports, you're in a district, but you do not have to play those teams in the regular season. So it becomes, a scheduling issue. I mean, you go back to this last season and what we're playing now, like boys and girls basketball. You're in a 7-team district. You have 14 games guaranteed on your schedule. Now you don't have those guarantees, so that's why you put this conference in to build those in, and that's what, and plus the proximity.
Yeah,
the travel, which is important because you got to fill out that schedule.
Still got yellow buses you got to get on.
Yeah, and that was going to be the difficult part. Probably, I think boys and girls soccer and basketball, boys and girls, that's maybe the more difficult one because they play more games.
Right.
It's a more difficult schedule to fill out. So now with these 8 schools, you've got 7 boys and girls basketball. You get 14 games.
Half your schedule's right there.
Yeah, which makes a huge difference. And it renews and keeps alive these rivalries,
which is what we have to have.
Yeah, it's important. I mean, it's a big deal.
It is.
It was great these last few years with them. The Citrus and Hernando schools being together in most of the districts, and now some of them it's sliding away. We know that Lecanto will be in a completely different district for football. That kind of changes things up. Football for Crystal River and Citrus still mostly the same as they're down there with a couple of the Hernando schools, but good to keep the rivalries, good to keep good for the fans, less travel. I mean, it's fun to see those gyms on Friday night if you're at the baseball diamond too. I mean, we've seen Springstead and Nature Coast and Weeki Wachee playing Lecanto and Citrus and Crystal River. It's good for the fans to travel no matter what the sport is.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, you don't and it's. They also mentioned in it too, the Pasco County schools, which would sort of be a normal progression to try and get them to play you in certain sports. Well, there's so many Pasco County schools.
Yeah.
They're just going to do it amongst themselves for the most part. So this was something that I think Hernando and Citrus County, they needed to do for the benefit of their schools.
And I think also for the benefit of the athletes, because the athletes will get a more publications, will get more notoriety because they're going to promote it. They're going to promote those things, and that will give the athletes some more, things to show their kids and so forth. I mean, I still have the patch, the GCAC All Conference. I mean, that's on your Letterman jacket. And those things are happening.
I always think it's great for the kids to be able to look at the standings, whatever they are for, and try to win something. And in these sports we're talking about, when you don't have, you're in a district, but they don't seed you till the end of the year for the tournament. There is no regular season district champion anymore. What are you looking at? What do you on a Tuesday night in early January, you're playing a basketball game against Hernando High or something. You're like, well, I mean, they're not even there. I mean, what is it now? I mean, you've got the conference championship to play for, and it becomes a big deal. And you look at those standings, and this is one of the goals that I'm sure all of these coaches will have when they start the season. We want to make it to the state tournament. We want to win a state championship. We want to win the district tournament. We want to win the conference.
8 conference.
Yeah. So it's important that they were able to put that together, and good on all the ADs for doing it. And it helps out. This is a difficult time because you're changing the way things have been done for a while around here with postseason.
It's funny how things all come around though.
Yeah,
Gulf Coast
gone because we don't need it anymore. You're unimportant because we have districts tournaments, and now you're back. So
same thing as bell bottoms.
Yeah,
same thing as tie-dye shirts. It comes around.
Nice to see. Again, best of luck tonight to the softball teams if they get the game in at Lecanto, Crystal River, and Citrus. If not, I'm sure they'll go tomorrow. Best of luck to the Christopher Flagg football team in action tonight in the state tournament. Mike mentioned the track and field athletes moving on
this
to
Friday,
states as well. So also real quick before we go, I know you were up in Nashville for the NFL draft, and you said it wasn't hard to figure out what the Bucs probably were going to do, assuming everybody did what they did ahead of them.
Yeah,
so their first round pick was kind of what everybody expected, and I mean,
after that, all hell broke loose, though.
Everything I saw and read from the experts, I didn't see anybody grade the Bucs' first selection as anything lower than a B.
No, it's definitely an A for me.
Yeah, I mean, now it's up to performance, but everything leading up to it says this was a solid pick.
And I agree. Devin White is a prime fit for Bowles' defense. He's replacing a person, Quan Alexander, that went and left to free agency. He's got speed. He can cover those running backs out of the backfield that we do on the NFC South. So he's right fitting in with what the Buccaneers need. After that, there's a lot of speculation on what is good or bad based on what they were looking. But I did notice a trend that, of course, cornerbacks were a trend. The backfield for the defensive secondary was what they were really focusing on. And I also noticed that they were focusing on speed. They focused on all three of them. They picked up Sean Bunting in the second round, Jamal Dean in the third round, both cornerbacks, and Mike Edwards in the third round, also the second pick in the third round.
Now, doesn't that tell you? I mean, I know it's a new coaching staff, but what they saw on film from who they currently have,
Carlton Davis and Vernon Hargreaves.
Hargreaves is one that I
called that when
they got picked. This is either your wake up call. You better pick it up, or it's you've got 1 foot out the door.
Right, and I'm a Gator fan, but Vernon Hargreaves, I just didn't think he fit in with when they picked him. I think he's a little smallish on the smaller side, and both of these guys are 6 foot and 6'1". And they can leap and they're physical. And that's one of the things you have to have in the NFC South. You've got physical wide receivers. You've got to have physical cornerbacks that can play man-on-man. And I think you're seeing this. Most of them, I think Bunting had 9 interceptions, and he had, and actually Edwards had 10 interceptions. So ball hogs also.
Interesting in Bunting only because played at Central Michigan, played in the MAC. It has a reputation. It's northern schools, a lot of run, not known for super fast athletes in a lot of ways, but I think he's kind of the exception to that. He's an athlete that could have gone to maybe in Ohio State, but you only have so many scholarships to give away.
Well, he had 43 pass defenses in 3 years, so that tells you that he was right on top of everything. So I think, and he's 6'1", 195. That's going to give him some size. He's got great leaping ability, so he can get the balls in the air. So that's I think they're looking at all those things, And again, Vernon Hargreaves and Carlton Davis, who we had picked up last year. They're on call right now. I think Vernon mostly, to be honest with you. Carlton Davis is still a rookie at that point, and then they picked up Anthony Nelson in the fourth round. That's a big, huge defensive end from Iowa, 6'7", 271.
Now that to me would seem like that's kind of a depth pick start with.
It's a Noah Spence and Jason Pierre-Paul backup. Give him to rest in a little bit and put him in there, and then of course our 5th round pick, which. Look, I understand that a kicker. I don't get
better
it.
In the 5th.
I know, but that could have been done in the 7th. But that's just my opinion. But anyway, 5th round they looked like, and Bruce Arians said that was my first offensive pick I got, so that's what I wanted. And so BA is saying that's my offensive guy. But there's going to be in battle against the incoming Santos coming in. So that's kind of I wasn't really sure about that one. I was like, I don't know what that was, and then they got Scott Miller in the 6th, wide receiver, a slot receiver, really 5'9", 174. He's got really quick feet, fast, good hands though.
Humphreys replacement, right?
Yeah, looking at that point. Although I think they will put Godwin in the slot mostly here. And then the 7th round is a good, just kind of shot in the dark here. Terry Beckner from Missouri, defensive tackle.
Now Terry Beckner, I'm familiar with him and his career. He was out of East St. Louis, Illinois. Was at one point the number 1 high school recruit in the nation. Some injuries derailed him at Mizzou, but a guy that going into college was thought of as having immense athletic ability and a bright future. It's hard to project, but I think if you would have talked about Terry Beckner 5 years ago going into college, you would have said this guy's going to project to a first or second round NFL pick.
Yeah, he was a 5-star going in. So I mean, he just the injury in 2016 is really what kind of sidelined him a little bit. He still had I think it was 23 tackles for loss. So I mean, he's involved in the inside and he can be powerful in front. And so I think there's a little telling.
It's a flyer,
but it's a flyer, but it's a telling sign flyer because his defensive tackle is McCoy. What's going on? So this is planning for the future. So.
Which is and before I know you got something else, but we talked about it, and fans shouldn't be allowed to dictate the draft. But I mean, I think we all saw defense needed help, and the first 5 are helping the defense. So the new coaching staff came in and said, "Yeah, what everyone knows about us is true. We're really good on offense. We got a lot of pieces in place. We got some work to do on defense."
And that they said, and
that's how you build.
And now they're saying that, if you look at it again, you can say that, well, we think we'll be okay on the defensive line. We need to get more production out of them, but it was our backfield that was really hurting us.
Yeah, that was a clear message, right?
Plays,
yeah,
so it was there.
You go corner.
Plus,
safety.
you remember last year we had 3. Hargraves went down for injury. You had another 2 people, so we were playing people off the street basically on cornerback. We're just pulling them off the practice squad, and that really did not help at all. So this is where you're going to have some depth also.
Yeah, absolutely. So interesting for them. Now moving forward, now you got to get these guys ready to play.
Yeah, this week this week coming up is going to be the mini rookie camp. They've got a lot of the free agencies. They come in, they sign them, unsigned them. So they got a bunch of them coming in. And one of the ones that is really interesting is Nick Fitzgerald from Mississippi State, quarterback, but he runs a 4.4. He's a Taysom Hill kind of guy.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, look, Jameis is a big guy. But I mean, I liked what I saw with Taysom Hill, the way that the Saints did it, and 3rd and 1, send Breeze to the sideline so he doesn't get dinged up, and you bring in Taysom Hill. I don't know if that's what's going to happen with Nick Fitzgerald, but he certainly fits that kind of mold as a bruising guy.
Ryan Griffin, you got Blaine Gabbert still there, so there's 2 quarterbacks now, so 4 quarterbacks right now. Which they usually have 4 quarterbacks going into camp, but the issue for me is whether Nick Fitzgerald can actually fit in somewhere else and do that kind of stuff, because he can throw, he can run, he's a great pounding runner.
He's not going to make the roster as a guy who sneaks on 3rd down twice a game. No, he's going to have to be able to do something else, but
special teams and everything else.
Yeah, it's a big name SEC player that I think. Didn't he break Tim Tebow's record for most rushing yards as a quarterback?
Yes.
So, I mean,
that's right there. It's a telling sign.
There's some athletic ability, but it was used at quarterback with Dan Mullen and at Mississippi State. He's got to find another way to find a spot on the roster.
I love that, though, that you can do some misdirection, and this is what it is right now. If you notice that even when Taysom Hill was in there, sometimes he wasn't even the main target. He was actually in the slot. He could be in the backfield. He could be a quarterback. There's a lot of ways you can play him. So
and I mean, I think Taysom Hill probably is. I haven't seen Nick Fitzgerald's 40 time, but I think Taysom Hill probably a little more athletic, a little faster.
Yes.
But I mean, Taysom Hill was also a guy that played 27 years at BYU with 96 injuries. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, he found a home, and Sean Payton found a way. I think there's potential for Nick Fitzgerald to do some interesting things if you can find another spot for him, because he's not your backup quarterback.
No, he's not. He's going to be.
But he could, if he does something else, he could be the guy who takes more snaps from center than any of the. Yeah, exactly. There's that possibility.
That's it. They got a lot of them, though, coming in. Some names you don't really know. Kaysen Daniels, the defensive end from Charleston. Zach Bailey, offensive line from South Carolina. That's a flyer, too. Nate Trewin, the center from University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. Malik Taylor, wide receiver. Anthony Johnson, wide receiver. Contrell Simpson, wide receiver. DeMarcus Law, wide receiver. Jalen Allison, wide receiver. Bruce Anderson, running back. Isaiah Searside, tight end. Lucas Dennis, safety. And Dan Gotso, long snapper from Indiana.
Yeah, a couple of interesting, I think, and you don't watch a ton of those games, but you saw what Buffalo did this year as a football team and the way they threw the ball around. You get a wide receiver out of Buffalo who's used to catching some passes. Now, I don't know, what that translates to. Again, Ole Miss, they've thrown the football around, and they've been able to put some interesting receivers into the NFL, and then you just a couple of guys from North Dakota State.
That's a big deal there.
What do they know? Oh, they know how to win. They win championships.
Bruce Anderson is running back.
They can run the football too.
Yeah, he looks really good.
I mean, you never know. I mean,
Peyton Barber is okay right now, but
yeah,
Jones might be in on the way out.
Yeah, and I think you look at some of those that you bring in, and maybe one of them we'll be talking about in October, or maybe
one.
two.
Yeah, maybe two on the practice squad.
Yeah, but I mean, what you see in some of those is guys who either stood out at smaller schools or guys that are from programs that have produced success at that position. I mean, and I think that's part of it. I mean, you take an SEC offensive lineman as a flyer, never know.
That's right.
I mean, they know how to, they lined up. That guy, the offensive lineman from South Carolina, he's lined up against the best in the defense.
Auburn, Clemson, the guys they took. Actually, the Raiders took him back there.
Yeah, you never know. So interesting time for the Buccaneers, and on paper it looks like a good draft, but
that's why it's a draft.
You don't win the Lombardi by your draft
not
on the
at
paper.
all.
So
by the way, if you did not go to the draft in Nashville, that was one of the best draft I've been at since they started.
Yeah, you've been all over the place. You've been
when they moved it from New York City.
You've been to New York,
been
to Chicago,
Philly, Dallas. And then Nashville. Nashville was one of the best ones because of the proximity to downtown and what they had set up to it. So if you ever get a chance, next year's in Vegas.
Yeah,
so
that'll be interesting. Go from Nashville to Vegas. Kind of a lot of the similarities.
Exactly.
I mean, the weather was supposed to be terrible, but the NFL had it worked out, and I mean,
they pulled the strings.
That was good. So, real quick, I don't think did we talk about it 2 weeks ago? Lightning over and done with.
Yeah.
Wow. That was a disaster. But Cooper's still the head coach, and we mentioned that. Probably be the Rays still going good. Yesterday was a bit of a doubleheader sweep by Kansas City. Yikes! Today. But you never know. It's still the best record in the American League, best record in baseball.
I love the pitching staff. Glasnow is out of this world right now.
Yeah, and I know it's a month, but I think they've proven that barring injury and things falling on pitchers' feet, they got a real chance to win this division. I mean, we talked about it, spring training, 90 wins, maybe a wild card. Now, now I don't. It is not crazy talk to say they can win this division. Boston is struggling and they have real problems. The Yankees are the scary team when you've got an all-star team on the injured list,
right?
And you're sitting only a couple of games back, so that'll be a battle. But man, they could make it exciting.
It's going to be an interesting summer for them.
Yeah, I mean, not going to help the crowds. It'll stay the same. But they're a fun young team to watch, and hopefully everybody gets behind them and watches them.
Definitely.
So that'll put a bow on it for us for this week's edition of the Citrus Preps podcast. We'll keep you up to date next week on what has gone on in the state tournament and the district tournaments as well. So we'll be back here next week, and best of luck to all the teams as they make that journey to a state championship. We'll see you next week.